Hello, my love, and welcome to this hour-long masterclass in preventing burnout in your teams and in yourself. There is a reason this masterclass focuses on preventing burnout in your teams. Much of the research I've read, and certainly my own experience in coaching executive women in leadership, indicates we very often put the well-being of those people that we care about, including those in our teams, ahead of our own well-being. I am going to take a little bet with myself that you will have found it easier to make time for this masterclass, knowing it's going to give you strategies that will help you better support people you care about, than if it was a masterclass specifically to help you support yourself better. The reality is all the information in this masterclass is just as applicable for you yourself as it is for your teams. And I'm going to be swapping my language around a little so you can see how the strategies and insights apply to you too. Over the course of this hour, we will cover what burnout is, what it looks and sounds and feels like. There are broadly 3 stages of burnout. First-degree burn, where you experience the onset of stress and its associated patterns. Second-degree burn, where you move into chronic stress. And third-degree or full-blown burnout. And it's important to be able to identify which stage you're observing, because the strategies for effectively dealing with each stage are quite different. I have a customized diagnostic tool I can make available for you so you can tell with a pretty high degree of certainty whether burnout is something that you need to be worried about. And there's more about that diagnostic tool towards the end of the masterclass, along with how you can access it. We will dive into the causes of burnout, and there are workplace contributors and personal temperament contributors, as well as the costs of burnout. And these are also divided between workplace costs and personal costs. And we'll also explore some of the action steps available to you right now for whatever stage of burnout you're observing. So you can stop burnout in its tracks, or prevent it getting worse, or if necessary, put an effective recovery plan in place to help you or your burnt-out team members get their lives and their selves back. Now, what are my credentials for sharing this with you? I am Karyn Brinkley, burnout survivor and now an authority with lived experience in all 3 stages of burnout, as well as what it takes to prevent burnout from occurring and what recovery really looks like. And spoiler alert, on the other side of recovery, life is beautiful, free, purposeful, joyful, connected. But I'm not going to lie to you. If you are in third-degree burn or full-blown burnout, it is not fast or easy to recover. And that's why it's so important to me to offer you this support before you or your colleagues get to third-stage burnout. Because I am much more than a burnout survivor and burnout authority. After a long career in C-suites and boardrooms as executive and director myself, I've seen and experienced and understand what it takes for women to lead and succeed. I am now a powerful and compassionate coach for executive women with purpose and commitment who sense there are opportunities for more, for better, for bigger, if only they had the bandwidth and energy to see them. I'm working with executive women in public service and in the private sector, and more than one, many more than one, have come to me burning out. And it is my privilege and my satisfaction to be able to coach them into more sustainable, more enjoyable, more successful lives on their own terms. I would love to do the same for you. So please watch the masterclass, take an action today that feels right for you and your team. And if you need help with any of that, please reach out to me. You can find the link to my calendar in the bio section on this site. And now I'm proud and pleased to present this masterclass on preventing burnout in your teams. Much love to you. Almost 3 years to the day from today, I was saying goodbye to the team I had loved and cared for and celebrated and sweated with and cheered and cried with for almost 10 years. Now, I am somebody who has always fallen deeply in love with her teams, so this was hard, and not just for me. But I was absolutely convinced I was doing the right thing, that I could no longer lead them the way I wanted to lead them, the way they deserved to be led. It was July 17, 2021, so very nearly 3 years to the day today, and the world was slowly returning to normal, at least on the surface, following the hell that was 2020 and COVID. I had had a pretty scary health episode a few months before, and I had an equally scary family neurological condition that I had been anticipating for years. And the physical symptoms I was experiencing, unrelenting exhaustion, inexplicable muscular pain and spasms, monstrous headaches, slurring my words, tripping over my feet. All of these together convinced me I was dying. I wasn't dying. I was burnt out. And looking back now, I feel ridiculous that I leapt to the conclusion I was succumbing to the family death sentence. None of the medical tests that I took over a period of months indicated a terminal condition. And while my doctors were concerned, because the physical symptoms I was experiencing were in some instances very evident, they weren't alarmed. Perhaps you just need to slow down a little, one doctor told me. I think my response at the time was a disbelieving little snort. Slow down? Well, if I wasn't actually dying, and Dr. Google and its jury was still out on that score as far as I was concerned, then of course I needed to buck right up and get back to work, which of course I'd never actually stopped. And so here is one of the big problems with burnout. When you're in it, you have no perspective. You have no landmarks. Very often, as an executive woman, you have no support. Nobody pulling you up saying, whoa, Nellie, that's enough now. Even the doctor suggesting I slow down a little didn't offer me a sick note. Not his fault. Because if you are the type of woman who burns herself out, then you are the type of woman who is really good at pulling on her brave face, her stoic shield, her body armor. If you're the type of woman who has burned herself out, you are the type of woman who pushes on through the exhaustion, through the fog, through the insomnia, through the anxiety, through the hopelessness, because by God, you are not going to let anybody down just because you feel like shit. And so no, I wasn't dying, but I wasn't living either, or not in a way I would recognize today was how I wanted to live. I was dragging myself into work every morning, often crying all the way in, not because I cared so much about what I was about to do that day, but because I recognized I no longer cared. I had no more care left. No energy or bandwidth left to care, no emotion left to care. Certainly not the energy and emotion that I always relied on to inspire and lift and cajole and coax my team into producing the outstanding results they were known for, COVID or no COVID. These people deserve better than me, I told myself. I am barely functioning. I don't deserve this position of leadership. I don't deserve this salary. I'm letting everybody down. They just haven't worked that out yet. And it's time I did the right thing and stepped aside so somebody better than me, somebody with more energy, a sharper brain, a clearer vision, could do the job that needed doing. It was at once the smartest decision and also the dumbest decision I have made in my 30-year career. Smart, because in some ways I was right. I was dying. I was killing myself. Dumb, because if I had recognized what was happening, if I had known how to ask for help, or even what help to ask for, if I'd got myself the support I needed, I would most likely still be leading that team, still doing that job that I loved so much. And that is the great paradox of women in stage 3 burnout. You have to pretty much surrender yourself to giving everything up. All the things that you identify make you you in order to save yourself so you can become you again. We know this from global statistics, and we know this from the best and latest research into burnout, which is now taking place in Australia under the leadership of Professor Gordon Parker at University of New South Wales. Burnout is a work-related phenomenon, recognised by the World Health Organization only in 2018, that affects women 4 to 6 times more than it affects men. 4 to 6 times more. And the type of women it affects are not, contrary to much of the shaming and stigma causing misrepresentation of burnout, these women are not women who simply can't handle stress and are responsible for burning themselves out, who just haven't got into the habit of buying themselves scented candles and taking warm baths on the weekend. These are not women who lack resilience or awareness or proactivity or diligence. The types of people, and 4 to 6 times more often it's likely to be women, the types of people most likely to be burnt out are highly motivated, highly reliable, highly competent, highly caring, high achievers. The women burning out are superstars. And executive women feature heavily amongst the burnout statistics because we know these are the qualities they bring to work. They care more about their people than they do themselves. They care about the outcomes and impact of their work more than they care about their own rewards or well-being. They are conscientious, reliable, hard-working women who burn out in spite of their quite remarkable resilience. They push through exhaustion and stress. They tell themselves, if I work harder and longer, if I start earlier, if I finish later, if I work Sunday as well as Saturday, I can still get this done. I can still get this achieved, even though I feel like shit, can't relax, haven't slept through the night in months, can't remember when I last laughed with a friend, can't remember when I last laughed. Perhaps they are you. Perhaps they are women you have observed and worried about in your team. Because here is something I know to be true. Can we be honest about it in this moment? You would not be here in this masterclass today if you hadn't observed and got worried about signs of burnout in yourself or in someone you work with and care about. And as we progress into the rest of this presentation, I would encourage you to keep that person, that woman, in your head and check what you hear against what you have seen or heard or felt. And one more thing, I encourage you to take a piece of paper right now and make a mark with your pen every time you hear a sign, a symptom, a statement you recognize, a point that seems important for yourself or for that woman. You don't have to take notes if you don't want to. You can always return to this masterclass recording. But I want you to make a mark on your paper every time you hear something that resonates for you. Now, what does this do? It keeps you listening and focused on what's important for you to hear. That's all. And if by the end you have a lot of marks on your paper, then bookmark this presentation and come back to it as often as you need to. Okay? Great, awesome. Let's start, as I always love to start, with a definition or description of burnout. The World Health Organization defines burnout as an occupational phenomenon essentially comprising 3 categories of symptoms. First of all, feelings of energy depletion and exhaustion. Second, increased mental distance from one's job. And third, decreased professional efficiency. Now, the World Health Organization definition was based on a model from Christina Maslach's work in the 1980s that has now been expanded by Professor Parker and other researchers beyond these 3 symptoms to incorporate a fuller, deeper description of burnout. We don't have time to cover all 12 of these in the masterclass, so I have a downloadable document you can contact me for via the link in my bio that describes all of these 12 symptoms. Professor Parker now describes burnout as a constellation of these dozen main symptoms. It's not just exhaustion. It's not just distance. It's not just too much on your to-do list. And depending which degree of burnout a woman is in, and there are 3 degrees, first, second, and third, you will see some or all of these symptoms to varying degrees. Me, I had the lot. I was in full-blown burnout. I was exhausted, anxious, cynical, disengaged, feeling hopeless and helpless, self-doubting, irritable, impatient, frustrated, resentful, getting 3 or 4 hours of interrupted sleep on weeknights, and then sleeping through my weekends, apart from the frantic hours I spent trying to catch up on the work I hadn't got done, the piles of emails, the red task list in my Outlook that never seemed to change in length or in redness. The job I had loved with a passion, I now dreaded. I beat myself up for not being as sharp as I used to be, for being indecisive, which I had never been, for making mistakes, for procrastinating. I went out of my way to avoid other people. Working from home was a godsend because I found it much easier to preserve the bright, enthusiastic mask behind a screen than in person. I told myself I didn't have time for my friends. I was too busy. I had too much to do. I had too much pressure in the job. I showed up the bare minimum I could get away with my son. And I was lucky because he was an adult with his own life, but still I missed many moments with him. I was surrounded by people, my team, my peers, my clients, my suppliers, and yet absolutely isolated. And I told myself that was what I needed. Now, the physical symptoms that I had attributed to my family neurological condition were examples of extreme burnout, my body packing it in because I would not allow it to stop. And for a person who had held stoically onto her emotions her whole career, her whole life, I was dissolving into tears, mortifyingly, in front of my boss and my team members. I was at stage 3 or 3rd degree burnout. I was done. I was gone. And at that time, I could see no way back. But full-blown burnout doesn't just happen to you quickly. We are committed, resilient, stoic, determined, service-focused high achievers. So it creeps up on us and we push it away so we can focus on what we've decided is a higher priority. And we keep pushing it away until all of a sudden it will no longer be pushed. Here's how it starts. Let's talk about stage 1 burnout, a 1st degree burn. And this features the onset of stress. And so you might experience it in some of these ways. It might be that work is taking up more time than you're liking. Some days are particularly stressful and you go home cranky and you take cranky to bed with you. You have days when you feel overwhelmed by your to-do list. You find yourself with less time and energy for the people and the things that you love. You start getting headaches, start feeling anxious. You might start having trouble getting to sleep or staying asleep. You feel yourself snapping at things or people that wouldn't normally bother you. How is this landing with you? Is this how you've been feeling? It's not so obvious at this early stage to see it in others, but you might notice women who are usually unflappable starting to flap just a little. Let's move on to stage 2, 2nd degree burnout. You are now in chronic stress. Your frustration levels are rising. You are feeling increasingly stressed out, and you struggle to lower that stress in a way that you used to be able to do. Your problem-solving skills and general performance are starting to feel to you like they're diminishing, even if nobody else seems to notice. But you feel powerless to fix things. You can't work out what it is that you need to do to change. So you work harder. You work longer. In the meantime, you are struggling to see the bright side of the challenges, feeling resentful of people who don't seem to carry the same load as you, and cynical about new initiatives your organisation or your colleagues want to talk to you about. You are plagued by persistent fatigue and exhaustion. Your job's just become a real burden on your overall well-being. You might be coping through procrastination, through denial, through substance abuse, through late-night retail therapy. You might start feeling threatened, so pressured that you respond to new tasks or activities or invitations with aggression. Why would they even ask me that? They must know I don't have time for that. Does this feel like it resonates with you? Is this how you've been feeling? Or are you noticing it in somebody else who seems forever tired and preoccupied, cranky and snappish? You might have encouraged them to take some time off and been rejected. You might have insisted they take some time off and they don't seem any better when they return. Chances are they are in second-degree burn and heading into full-blown burnout. That's stage 3, third-degree burn. I have described my own experience of this. You are broken. You have nothing left to give, literally nothing, and you can't summon enough energy to even care. You know this is not you, but you don't know who you is anymore, and you can't seem to find your way back to her. I promise you, you do not want to live here in stage 3. You don't want your high-achieving, capable, committed team members getting to here. So, how do we prevent it? Let's look at the causes. And again, this is the most up-to-date information that research is providing us. And it tells us that there are 2 sets of factors that combine to create the conditions for burnout. The first of these are workplace factors, and there are 5 of these. The first is unmanageable workloads. Do more with less needs to be banned from managerial language. There is a hard limit to how much work can be pushed onto people, how many tasks added to already full lists with none removed to make way for the new. Add into this immense deadline pressure, and I see this in both public sector and private sector clients, immense deadline pressure. Add in no time for rest and recovery, no escape from work thoughts, being always on and being always on call, having no time for creativity, for professional growth and development. And I want to leave a side note for leaders in this masterclass. If you have a fabulous, high-achieving woman in your team who is, from any reasonable perspective, overloaded, please do not offer her professional development. I know that seems counterintuitive. I know that often professional development is how we reward high achievement, but it might not be the reward you think it is, and it might not be what she needs in this time. If you offer it and sense any degree of resistance to it, do not assume she's just being self-effacing. This is your cue to dig deeper, to see why your superstar is not excited in developing any further. It's a great flag to be watching. We're still in the unmanageable workloads factor, And I want to add in lack of acknowledgement, communication, or support from managers about this unmanageable load. Nobody talks about it. Nobody knows how to fix it. Nobody pushes back and calls it out for what it is: unreasonable and unmanageable. In combination, these unmanageable workload factors chip away at high achievers' sense of their worth and their impact. This is endemic in organisations lacking clear strategic direction and clear priorities. It is the number one most common factor in burnout and one of the most easily fixed, but it takes executive leadership to acknowledge it and do something about it, which takes courage and trust. And aren't these two qualities essential to effective leadership? Okay, let's move on to number 2 of the workplace contributors to burnout, and that is unfair treatment. Unfair work allocation, unfair work reward, unfair differences in deadlines and resources, in access to opportunities and support. Now, justice is an important value for many high-performing women, and we tend to fight for justice for others and often tolerate injustice towards ourselves. We tell ourselves it doesn't matter that we have more work than others at our level, or that others are taking credit for our work. It doesn't matter, does it, as long as the work gets done and the outcomes are achieved? I wonder if you've said this to yourself. I wonder if you've heard other women say it. I'm here to tell you it does matter, particularly if justice is a value that's important to you. Our gender pay gap is one example of injustice. Merit-based promotion without appropriate regard for context is another. Women putting their heads down and getting on with the job, never complaining about the pressure and never feeling recognised or rewarded is baked into our culture. And noting that you're feeling increasingly resentful about this is a strong signal you're burning out. Let's move into workplace factor number 3. This is lack of autonomy. Being the subject matter expert, but having no input into or control over decisions that affect your work and outcomes. Being micromanaged. Having your best professional advice dismissed, and then being responsible for the cleanup of the consequences of that. Having insufficient access to resources. Feeling out of control of your work and your workday. Workplace contributor to burnout number 4, an unsupportive work culture. How supportive and trusting are the relationships around you? How endemic is the hopelessness and helplessness of overwork and overwhelm in your organisation? Is bullying the elephant in the room that never gets addressed? Are work responsibilities confusing? Is there lack of clarity around priorities? Are other people frequently stepping into your lane and undercutting your efforts? Is your boss consistently taking credit for the work that you are killing yourself to deliver? And the final workplace burnout factor, number 5, a values mismatch. How are decisions being made in your organisation? How are resources being invested? How are conflicts and conflicts of interest being resolved? If you are feeling like your values are no longer aligned with your boss's values or your organisation's values, that signals a condition that can contribute to burnout. Now, your organisation's values might have changed over time, or perhaps they were never well aligned with yours to start with, but other conditions of burnout are highlighting the mismatch. Either way, it's a red flag. If you are a leader of a team in which you are observing burnout signs, then these are your priority reflections, these 5 workplace contributors. And I have them on a handout you can download so you can refer to them again after today's masterclass. Now, sometimes you might reflect and recognize there's a problem. Sometimes you might decide that problem is outside your control. And I say to you with all the love and compassion in my heart, these problems are never outside your control. As a leader, you have a duty of care to reflect, assess, and then to act if necessary. So, those are the workplace factors contributing to burnout. Now, here are the second set of factors, and I have referenced these already. These are the individual personality attributes and qualities, the temperament attributes and qualities that contribute to the conditions for burnout. They are the things that make you successful early in your career and which can burn you out later. These are behaviors and beliefs that served your career well in your 20s, but they can burn you out in your 40s and 50s once your life demands have got bigger, once your seniority and responsibilities have got bigger. They sound like, I will say yes to everything. I will work relentlessly. I will never let anyone down. My self-worth is measured by my career success. And here's the real kicker. Overtly or not, consciously or not, these personality attributes and qualities are exactly what organizations recruit for when they are hiring their leaders. And the more executive responsibility your role carries, the more that you will have adopted, practiced, and demonstrated these qualities in your career. And so the two main temperament or personality factors that contribute to burnout are, number one, giving. A service ethic, a care commitment, and the associated obligations and responsibilities to others that these bring with them, whether they are in service of bosses, team members, colleagues, clients, children, aging parents, partners, from consistently working 2 shifts, in other words, and bringing the same sense of duty, conscientiousness, and care to both. Now, the research indicates that the burnout contribution at home doesn't come from tasks like stacking the dishwasher, but from the mountain of household and family manager responsibilities typically taken on by or left to women and their poor, overworked, depleted executive function. Women in leadership roles also sometimes bring a sense of indebtedness into their work, particularly if they are picking up cues that they were hired as a token concession to gender equality, and so feel under enormous additional pressure to perform. You know, women are taught to be grateful for every opportunity, including the opportunities that nobody else wants and which contribute to their burnout. The second big personality contributor to burnout is the type A personality. The woman who is self-driven, achievement-oriented, keen to seek control, competitive, preoccupied with work and deadlines and KPIs. Let's just call her what she is, what I was, a workaholic with a let's get it done mantra engraved in her soul. This is the woman who wears busy as a badge of honor, because in the absence of appropriate organizational rewards and recognition, this is how she knows and feels and affirms she is important and is contributing value in what she does. She is not great at delegating because we all know it will be faster and better and easier if we do it ourselves. She is always feeling and radiating a sense of time urgency. Faced with demanding or impossible workloads, type A individuals drive themselves even harder and are more likely to experience high levels of work stress, often self-generated. In other words, they expect much more of themselves than is reasonable, and they have probably had high expectations of themselves throughout their careers, higher than anybody else expects of them. And if you are an employer with a high-achieving, self-motivated star who seems to thrive on high expectations, what do? You very gratefully load them up with more because they give you every impression of being A, hungry for it, and B, absolutely dependable in delivering on it, until one day they're suddenly not. Does this sound like anyone you know? Does it sound like you yourself? How are you going with marking your paper? Have you found points so far that have resonated? Let's move into the costs of burnout. And I'm no longer talking about the costs in energy and emotion. I am now talking hard financial costs. And as with the causes, there are two categories of cost. There is the cost to the workplace and the cost to the person. Take a moment right here, right now, to think of the women in your team who are your most reliable, committed, competent performers. Honestly, how do you think they're doing? Honestly, what would it cost you to lose them? What's the cost of them losing their focus and their productivity over time? What's the cost of supporting them? Because God knows you don't want to lose them. What's the cost of replacing them if you do lose them? Shall we try and put some real numbers on losing one of these women? Now, the cost to any workplace of creating the conditions for burnout are increasing with every successful legal suit against an organisation's duty of care and psychological safety. This is going to be one of the biggest new risk discussions in C-suites and boardrooms in the coming year. But put lawsuits aside and just look at the replacement costs for women allowed to burn out. For my international followers, the costs I'm quoting now are in Australian dollars. But even with the conversion to your own currency, I think you will find them pretty scary. Say we are talking about a senior director with a few teams reporting to her. Assume $60,000 to $80,000 for the out-of-pocket recruitment costs of a national search for a new executive. Then add in loss of productivity. For example, the lost productivity of me in my final months, in my team through the transition to a new leader, and in the time it took that leader to get up to speed properly in the job. Add a year's salary as a minimum between me and the new executive. Assume a modest drop in productivity of 15%. Across my team of 35, we had an annual salary package upwards of $4 million. You are getting perilously close to $750,000 in funding lost there. In this instance, in public funding lost there. If you knew you were about to lose more than $700,000 from your operational budget to burnout, would you act? If you knew you were about to lose more than $700,000 from your annual operational budget to burnout, that is, to no meaningful new initiative or impactful contribution or efficiency dividend, would you act? On the personal side, I left my career just before my long service leave fell due, and 4 years before official retirement age. I have not replaced the salary, the superannuation, the car, the leave, or other entitlements. While I don't regret for a minute the decision that I took, I estimate burnout personally has cost me a smidge over $1 million in lost income, without accounting for the medical expenses, the lost relationships, the lost self-confidence, the lost peace of mind, the lost joy. If you knew you were in danger of losing $1 million and around 2 years of your best life to burnout, would you act? These are serious questions because the figures, the costs, the risks I've spoken about today are not exaggerated. If anything, they're too conservative for a responsible discussion about burnout. From my own experience, I am rebuilding my life and my career with knowledge and experience I have paid $1 million for. It was nearly 2 years to the day after I told my team I was leaving them that I woke up one morning feeling like I knew how I was, where I was, when I woke up feeling like I knew who I was. And over the past year or so, I have been coaching woman after woman after woman, and there is not one woman who hasn't shown up to me with symptoms of burning out, whether she'd realized that or not before she came to me. I am so tired of seeing executive women, brilliant women, smart and gifted and fierce in their commitment to their work, their teams, their impact, come to me in tears because they just can't feel it anymore. They can't feel the satisfaction. They can't feel the connection. They can't feel the energy. They can't feel the hope. All they feel is fear. They're coming to me when they are so close to a 3rd-degree burn. I can literally feel the pain and the stress and the exhaustion and the heat of fear radiating off them. And I can help them, and I do help them. But by God, if they had come to me sooner, what a difference we could have made together. It makes me sad and it makes me angry that so many of our brightest women are flaming out this way. And so today I want to leave you with this message, and nothing I have said so far in this masterclass is more important than this. If you have heard the signs of burnout today and realized you are worried about somebody in your team, you must act for their sake, for your organization's sake, for your own sake. If you are recognizing burnout in somebody, you must act. If you heard the symptoms of burnout and realized you were worried about yourself, you must act. Burnout is contagious. Burnout in leadership is most contagious of all. And because we are quite often women who put others' needs ahead of our own, I promise you, your team needs you leading them from your strongest, most vital self. Act for them if you won't act for yourself. I hope you will act for yourself, but please, please act. What does acting look like? For 1st-degree burnout, with the onset of stress and its effects, taking action means reviewing workloads and priorities and strategically and methodically lightening the load. It will more than likely require a brave, calm, firm discussion with your boss about priorities. For 2nd-degree burnout with chronic stress causing havoc to your physical, mental, and emotional health, it means a substantial break away from work to rest. Not a long weekend, not a week, as long as you can possibly take uninterrupted by work. But a break on its own is not sufficient. If you are in 2nd-degree burnout and return after a break without substantial changes having been made to your workplace, your role, your responsibilities, your or other expectations, you will simply repeat the pattern. Getting yourself well and then getting yourself back to work from 2nd-degree burnout requires real change. If you're sitting there hearing and recognizing 3rd-degree or full-blown burnout in one of your team, you need to have an urgent conversation with the team member to let her know she has your support. And you need to go to your own supervisor to negotiate resources to replace her. She needs to be supported to take a prolonged period of leave and to access professional therapy or coaching and potentially also medical help. I promise you, I am not exaggerating the need. And my love, if you're pretty sure you are in full-blown burnout, you need an urgent consultation with your trusted GP or with a therapist, a counselor, or a coach knowledgeable about and skilled in supporting burnout recovery. If you are in third-degree burnout, you cannot recover easily or quickly on your own. And if you're in that place yourself or recognize it in others, you must act urgently to get help. If you think it seems scary to contemplate, it is. If you think it sounds scary to make the necessary changes, it absolutely is. But if you don't act, the time will come when the choice is removed from you, and I promise you, there is nothing scarier than facing third-degree burnout from the middle of it. The path out of burnout requires change in the woman burning out and in her work environment. And so I want you to take a moment now to check in with yourself. What are you feeling in this moment? Are you feeling worried for somebody in your team? Are you feeling worried for yourself? This has been pretty heavy going so far in this masterclass, and I am grateful you have given the time and commitment to show up for your teams and yourself, to explore it and think about it. I want to spend a few minutes talking about the steps you can take next, because there is a positive outcome to the story if you are ready to act. I ran a poll on LinkedIn recently asking why burnout is not talked about more widely, more seriously, more openly in our workplaces. And the top answer was, I don't want to admit to it, with the other responses very evenly split between I don't know what to do about it and I'm scared there's no fix for it. Those are all rational responses given the circumstances women find themselves in the workplace. They are rational and they're based on emotion. These are all fear-based responses. There is fear there of what others will say or think of you as a woman who has burnt out, or as a leader who has burnout in her team. There is fear there that if you admit to it, you'll actually have to do something about it. You can't keep ignoring it. And you're frightened of the changes that will need to be made, the costs of fixing it. And I know that fear, and I feel it with you. I also know that the costs of not fixing it, of not making the changes, are on another plane altogether. Easily $750,000 from your operating budget. Easily $500,000 to $1 million from a woman's earning capacity. I don't know any woman who can afford to be burnt out. I don't know any organisation that can afford to lose its highest performers to burnout. So I understand the fear of acting, and I know exactly how essential taking urgent action is. With time, and as the research is more widely disseminated, I do believe the world's perspective on burnout will change. There is no weakness in burnout. Indeed, it is the strongest women, the ones we rely on most to give and keep giving, whose burnout will force changes in our workplaces, because we will start to understand we can't afford to keep working as we are. Oh, but God, I would love for that understanding to come before we need to lose too many more great women to it. I also want to share with you not only my sad and sorry experience of burnout, but also how I'm able to help, because there is a fix for this, whatever degree of burnout you're worrying about right now. Determining just how much of a problem you might have is the first step. I have developed a burnout barometer that's based on the most up-to-date research, as well as my own lived experience as a burnout survivor and burnout authority, that will let you know with a pretty high degree of confidence whether you have reason to be worried. It can identify for you personally or for your team based on your observations what degree of burnout you might be dealing with. And I have effective strategies I can guide you with for each degree of burnout. So the next action is to book a call with me today. You can find the link to my calendar in my bio on this platform, and I will send you the barometer questionnaire. You complete that, you send it back to me, we get together to work through the results and what strategies you might need to put in place. We can do this for you, yourself. We can do this for your team. I will charge you $2,700 for this burnout assessment and next step session, and it will literally save you thousands of dollars, potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, because we know already, if you are here in this masterclass, you know you are already worried about burnout for yourself or for somebody close to you. Depending on where you're at on the burnout continuum, those 90 minutes could also save your career and reputation. It could save your team. Depending where you're at, it could save you 2 years of lost life. And if you complete the burnout barometer and get a clean bill of health, if burnout is not something you need to be concerned about for yourself or your team, I will cover the cost of the barometer myself, and I will refund that fee in full. That's how seriously I'm taking this for you. Sound good? So if any of this presentation today has concerned you, if you are worried about burnout for yourself or for somebody you're working with, if you have paper in front of you full of little pen marks that tell you you heard things today you recognized in yourself or somebody in your team, then drop into my calendar via the link in my bio and let's get a call booked in today so we can assess just what you're facing and can come up with a plan of action that's manageable and effective. Please don't decide you want to think about this some more before taking action. This is really important. I don't mind at all if you have watched this masterclass and decided you don't want to work with me. It is vital at this stage that you feel real rapport with whoever you're going to ask for help, because you need somebody in your corner who understands and relates to you and whom you can understand and relate to. That might not be me, and if it's not, I have no issue with that at all. But please decide in this moment what your next step is going to be and take some action towards that next step as soon as you finish this masterclass. Because if you don't, you'll get back to your day, back to your work, back to your worries, you'll get swamped again and lose more important time. What's your next step going to be? And what action will you take towards it right now? And if I'm somebody you believe can help you because of my own experience and how I've presented this information for you here, then drop into my calendar and book a slot today so we can move quickly to get you and your team the support you need. What I really want to leave you with today is hope, because for me, that was what being full-blown burnt out cost me more than anything else. In the miserable depths of it, I couldn't see a way out. And I don't know about you, but optimism, positivity, personal discovery, growth, these are things that make me who I am. They are essential qualities in me, and they all rely on hope. So the scariest thing for me about waking up each morning burnt out was not being able to find a skerrick of hope in me. It took a long time. I was still functioning. Leaving my job and my team had removed the main cause of the stress, and I quite quickly recovered from the exhaustion and the anxiety. I say quite quickly. That took around 3 months for me to wake up feeling okay again with physical energy. And that allowed me to finally take a mental step back and look at what part I had played in my own burnout. And that allowed me to start to rebuild my emotional foundations, my self-confidence, my self-trust, my sense of purpose. And then I started to hope that I wasn't done contributing, that I could make something useful out of this experience. And then I started to care again, to work again, to bring more than 20 years of leadership knowledge and experience, passion, compassion to other women who I want with all my heart to succeed in their careers, to contribute their talent and their vision to the world. And here we are. And if you are sitting there thinking to yourself, nah, that would never happen to me, I am not going to let that happen to me, then I hear you. And if the reason that will never happen to you is because you take action today, I celebrate you. I am thrilled for you and I'm proud of you. But if you sit there thinking, that would never happen to me, and you don't take away an action plan today, if you don't take one step today to reset your path, can I tell you with all the love in my heart, you are deluded, as I was, as all the women I coached through burnout were, who believed so hard it would never happen to them, that they didn't notice it was happening to them until it was too late. There is a different path to burning out, but you are at a crossroads in this moment. And it's time to choose which way you're going. Walk with me on this. Much love to you. Thank you for coming and for caring. Hello again, and thank you for staying online while I answer some of the questions I've been receiving since I launched this program for preventing burnout in your teams. Perhaps you are not sure if working with me is what you need, and the answers here might help you decide. If you have more questions after watching this, then feel free to simply drop me a message through my website or via email. Those details are in the bio information below this video, and I will get back to you just as soon as I can with the information that you need. Let me just give you a little summary of the questions I'm about to answer, and also the biggest block I'm hearing to taking action, so you have an idea what we're covering just now. Let's dive in, shall we? And again, if you have a question specific to your circumstances that you think isn't covered here, please just drop me a message and we will connect and answer it for you. First question, what's the process after I sign up for the Burnout Barometer? Great question. And it's a really simple and pain-free process. Your first step is to go into the bio information below this video and find the link to my calendar to book a call with me. You will need to enter your payment details then and there to secure your time with me, because I'm going to block out 90 minutes to spend with you, digging into what's responsible for the burnout and what you need to do to either prevent it getting worse or to put a recovery plan in place. If burnout is a problem in your life or in your team, this will be the most important and valuable 90 minutes you are likely to spend on this issue, because we will look at your report together, work out exactly what's contributing to the burnout, whether those are workplace factors or personal temperament factors or both. And we will immediately identify at least 3 powerful strategies customized to your own situation that will give you clarity, support, relief, a way off the burnout track, and back to feeling on top of your priorities, back to feeling in control, supported, confident. So the key first step is to book that call with me and protect that time in your own calendar for our discussion. Then as soon as you book that call, you'll receive the Burnout Barometer questionnaire. That is a comprehensive questionnaire that looks at all the symptoms of burnout you might be experiencing, and it's based on the most common causes the research tells us contribute to burnout. As soon as you book the call with me, you will receive the barometer questionnaire. You complete that. It will take around 20 minutes, and you'll get a report very quickly afterwards that lets you know with a pretty high degree of confidence whether or not burnout is something that you need to worry about. And if it is, the likely stage of burnout that you're observing. Because remember, the stage of burnout you're seeing or feeling tells us the first strategies we need to prioritize to help. I get a copy of that report at the same time you do. And this is the piece that will save us a lot of time and worry. If you have no reason to be worried about burnout, the report will let you know immediately. And it will let me know immediately. And I will immediately cancel our call and refund your payment for the barometer. So there is no risk of us wasting time or money talking about something that you don't need help with. The only reason we'll continue with a call after you've completed your barometer questionnaire is if it's clear from the results of that barometer that you or somebody in your team is at risk of burning out and needs support to prevent that happening. So that's the process. You book a call with me, complete the barometer questionnaire, we both get the report, and we look at it together on our call. And in that call, we unpack what's going on, what's contributing to burnout in your team or in your own life, and we decide the 3 priority strategies that you will take away and implement, either for yourself or for your team. We'll also spend some time on what might get in the way of you implementing those strategies, so that by the time you leave the call with me, you have absolute clarity on your next steps and what you need to put the strategies into action. Now, the next question I want to cover is, then what? What happens after we have the call and you take away those powerful strategies to deal with what's going on in your team? Well, you won't be surprised to hear me say that depends. It depends on the stage of burnout that we're working on, and it depends on how committed you are to putting the strategies into action. Because let's face it, nothing is going to change after our call if you don't make the changes that we have discussed and agreed are the next steps. If after our call, you take those strategies away and put them into place as we've agreed, you will see positive change, regardless which stage of burnout you're dealing with. That's how much clarity you will get from our call and from the strategies that we agree. You'll want to give yourself a month or 2 to see them put into place and to start to see the impact and changes. If we are dealing with first stage burnout or first degree burn, that may well be as much as you need to do to prevent burnout getting any worse and to reverse its early impacts. I'll always be available to you for a follow-up call to discuss any questions you have or any new factors or symptoms you might have discovered. But if we're dealing with first stage burnout, that 90-minute call with me, followed by the strategies and actions we agree in the call, could be all you need to prevent burnout in your team or in yourself. If we are dealing with the later stages of burnout, second degree or even full-blown burnout, the strategies we'll devise and the changes we'll agree are necessary are likely to be of a higher order and will take more time and more support, possibly from me, almost certainly from your workplace, because we know that higher level burnout stages will involve workplace factors and will need changes in your workplace arrangements. But I will be here to provide you the support you need to negotiate that with your workplace, with your boss. Whatever you need, by the end of our call, you will be really clear on what those essential changes might look like. And in the meantime, you will have at least 3 powerful strategies customized to your own situation that will make a difference in managing this higher level burnout if you act on them. Next question. What if I have burnout in myself as well as in my team? Great question. My love, if you are burning out, we must deal with what's going on for you first. Burnout in leadership is contagious, and I have very rarely seen burnout in a team where that team leader isn't also suffering burnout. So we start with you, supporting you with what you need, and knowing that that will also more than likely help your team members, because the same things contributing to burnout in you will be causing burnout in them. Your burnout barometer will certainly help us pinpoint the changes that you can make that will have the biggest, fastest impact for both you and your team. And for many women in leadership, I know there is resistance to this because they are far more comfortable prioritizing their team's well-being and needs than they are their own. But if your team is burning out, they need you at your strongest, most vital, most equipped, most resourced, confident, powerful self to help them. And so we fix your mask first in airline speak. That will more than likely look like you and me working together on strategies specifically designed to support you out of burnout. And as I say, these will also help support your team. But if it feels to you like your team also needs urgent support and you're worried you have too much on your own plate to give them what they need, then we can look at a parallel program that supports you yourself through burnout into recovery, while I can also keep working with your team on your behalf, keeping you fully across the strategies we're putting in place, but in a way that doesn't need you to stay on top of those changes day to day. I hope that's clear enough. Short answer, if you as well as your team are burning out, we prioritise your care and support as their leader. If you have more specific questions around this, drop me a line and let's get them answered for you. Next question, what if the problem is bigger than just me and my team? I think my whole organisation is in trouble with burnout. Yes, I understand, and you wouldn't be the first leader observing this in your organisation. Burnout can be absolutely endemic in organisations lacking clear direction when they're in environments of contracting resources. And nobody knows how to fix it. Everybody's frightened of what a fix might look like, so they pretend it's not happening to themselves, their teams, their colleagues, and one by one they drop out. They simply disappear, and the organisation stumbles along and eventually fails, but the number of fantastic women ruined by this scenario is nothing short of tragic. So yes, I understand. Here's the thing. You will be much better equipped and resourced, much stronger, more resilient, more powerful to be able to help your organisation deal with this scenario if you have managed your own burnout. What I have seen work very successfully for some organisations is that a leader takes the action to help herself and her own team, and that creates the conditions, the conversations for a much bigger discussion about what caused the burnout and how it's playing out elsewhere through the organisation. Sometimes all it takes for big change to happen in an organisation is for one person, one woman, to have the courage, the self-care, the self-respect to get the support they need and to speak out about what that means for others. Now, in the best examples, that results in me working with the organisation's top leadership in a program that addresses the workplace factors that have contributed to burnout. But I am not going to lie to you. In some instances, that top leadership is so frightened themselves of what they're seeing amongst their people and frightened of their own contribution to it, that they continue to stick their heads in the sand, to look the other way, while their best people burn out, flame out, and leave. There is no magic pill for burnout that doesn't require real organisational change. On the other side of the change, though, is unbreakable clarity of purpose and support for success. I personally think it is a no-brainer. I think we will see more and more organisations in the future coming to this same conclusion and making the changes necessary to preventing burnout from happening to their best people, their best women. Next question. What if the barometer result isn't clear? That's really unlikely. The barometer questionnaire has been very carefully developed to take account of the various workplace and temperament factors that contribute to burnout, and it's also very comprehensive in identifying the symptoms of burnout. Where we might see some lack of clarity in the barometer result is around the degree or stage of burnout. But that's where our follow-up conversation together gives us the opportunity to dive deep into what's going on, what you're observing, what you're feeling, what strategies are most likely to give you fast, great results. But if you don't have a reason to worry about burnout, the barometer will be very clear about that. And I will cover the cost of it myself so that you are not out of pocket for something that you don't need. Okay? How do I get my employer to pay for this? Great question. And how we go about that will very much depend on your employer and, most importantly, on your own relationship with your boss. There is a clear business case and a compelling return on investment for organisations that are proactive in managing burnout as it emerges. And I can help you develop that business case if necessary. I'm also happy to have a confidential three-way discussion with you and your boss. And that can be helpful in some cases when you feel like you want somebody in your corner to support you, to advocate for you. But you might also be perfectly happy to have that conversation with your boss as long as you have a little help with what to say. And we can develop a script for you and rehearse that with you so you feel confident in the points you want to make and the support you will need from your employer going forward. Very often a conversation with your boss is going to be one of the priority strategies that you will want to put in place anyway to start to get on top of burnout in yourself or in your team. So we can work through exactly what that conversation might look like so you feel ready and confident and equipped to have it. So those are all the questions I've received about this offer, and I hope you have found the information you needed to make an informed choice about your next steps. And particularly if you want to work with me on preventing burnout taking hold in you or in your teams. If you have a question we haven't dealt with here, you can just drop me a line via one of the channels below, and we will get you the information you need really fast. There's one other thing I need to talk about with you, and it's not so much a question as the big blocker I keep hearing over and over again. And the big blocker I'm hearing over and over that's preventing executive women from taking the action they know in their hearts they need to take is, I'm really frightened of what this will mean for me. In fact, I don't think I want to know just how much of a problem burnout might be for me or my team because I don't know how to fix it. I hear you, I understand. It's the same fear that has led so many women into ignoring or denying or pretending their burnout doesn't exist. And it's cost them their jobs, their health, their fulfillment, their financial security. For me, the antidote to fear is curiosity, having the courage to look head on at what we're frightened of, enough to get a really good look at it, and then to ask the questions we need to ask so we understand what's in front of us. That's the only way I know of to effectively deal with fear. And I understand, I do, that the next fear is that in getting a really good look at what's facing us, we might not like what we see. We might not like the answers. We might find the solutions intolerable. And that may well be true. But without the information you need, without the conversation about what's going on, why it's happening, what you can do about it, you are living in a perpetual state of low-grade anxiety and fear anyway. You know this. You might be afraid of what's facing you, but without acting, without information, you will stay afraid. That worry will sit in the back of your mind or in the center of your chest or in the middle of your gut. It will lodge there and it won't go away just because you choose not to look at it. Brené Brown says, we can do hard things. And I know this about you, potentially without ever meeting you. You didn't get to the position you're in without having the courage to face and deal with what you have encountered along the way. There is no shame in fear. There is no shame in asking for help, in admitting you need help. There is pain, and there is regret, and there is ongoing fear, and ultimately there is full-blown burnout if you don't breathe into this fear, face it head on for what it is at this stage, fear of the unknown. And you have dealt magnificently with fear of the unknown throughout your career. And you don't have to do this alone. I'm here for this and for you. This is my life's work, and I'm great at it. I got to being great at it by going through it, just as you're going through it, and coming out the other side, better, stronger, braver. We can do hard things. You have done hard things your entire career. And the hardest thing you have to do right now is actually one small, simple step. Book a call with me. That's it. Book a call with me. And let's face the fear head on and see how we're going to deal with it. Much love to you. Bye.